Tonight is Yutes Kislev. Reish Hashanah LeChasidus. Already today in the Hayom Yom, it says at the end, it says Good Yom Tov. Good Yom Tov, we should have a good year in the learning of Chassidus and in the conduct and the ways of Chassidus. Tikasevu v'seichasemu. You should be written and inscribed and sealed for a good year of learning Chassidus. That's what today is. Tonight, we have to make sure to attend the Farbringen. Make sure you take part in the Alter Rebbe celebration of Yutes Kislev. If not tonight, then tomorrow. If not tomorrow, then on Friday night. If not Friday night, then Shabbos. If not Shabbos, then Motzei Shabbos. 48 hours of Rosh Hashanah. No, I'm going to be here. Yeah, we're going to have a big Farbringen here on Shabbos. Tonight and on Shabbos also. So, and Friday night you should Farbring at home. With family. No.
You're not going to be
Yeah, we're going to Farbring Rabbi Teitelbaum and Rabbi Wagner. And Rabbi Weiss is going to be here too. But that's as far as Farbringens. We also have to learn. Chassidus is a study. You have to study Chassidus. And we have to study Rambam. That's what we're doing over here. Every day, no matter what, if it's Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Chassidic Rosh Hashanah, we're always learning Rambam. So here we go, today's Perek, Hilchos Parah Adumah, Perek Sheni, the laws of the red cow, chapter 2. We're going to learn today a contrast to what we learned yesterday. At the end of yesterday's chapter, the Rambam told us a very interesting thing. Biblically speaking, it's okay for the person who is involved in preparing the red cow to be a Tvul Yom. A Tvul Yom means on the way out of impurity. You already went to the mikveh, but sunset hasn't happened yet. Even though Torah says Ish Tahor, a pure man, that's enough to be called pure. But the Tzdukim, the Sadducees who didn't believe in the oral Torah, they said no, it means actually pure. You have to wait for sunset. So just to show that they're wrong, purposely the Beis Din would take the Kohen, whoever was going to be involved in the cow, they would make him impure, they would make him go to the mikveh and do the service while he's a Tvul Yom, just to show that the Tzdukim are wrong. Now, the problem is that that's a leniency, right? Because you're showing a little bit cheap attitude to the Parah Adumah. So to offset that, the sages instituted many, many other stringencies, so you shouldn't think we're being lenient. Many, many other chumrot. And that's going to be today's chapter about all those different chumras that the sages made to offset the leniency of having the Tvul Yom do the Parah Adumah. Says the Rambam Halacha Aleph, Mailes Yeseres Asu B'taras Parah Adumah. Many ma'alot means like elevations, but it means stringencies. The sages instituted many stringencies with the purity related to the red cow. The harchakos gedoles hirchiku mitumas hameis b'chol ma'aseh. And they made great distances, avoiding at all costs any form of contact of impurity with the dead in all the actions throughout the entire procedure. Because, as we saw yesterday, it's kosher to be done with those that are Tvul Yom, who went to the mikvah and didn't have the sun set. The sages were worried. Maybe that's going to lead to, a cheap attitude towards it. And we don't want that. So therefore they instituted many, many other stringencies. For example, because of this, when they would separate the kohen, who was going to burn the Parah Adumah, as we'll learn in a second, like before Yom Kippur, the high priest was taken away from his home 7 days before. The kohen who was going to burn the red cow was taken away from his home 7 days before. When we take him away to a very, very protected place. We separate him, we take him to a specific room in the temple courtyard. According to many opinions, it was in the northeastern side. So right over here. This is the courtyard, the northeastern side. Ubeis Even Hoysa Nikres. It was called the House of Stone. Because everything in that room was made out of stone, she'ein mekablin tuma, which stone cannot become impure from a dead body. So it was the surefire way to make sure that nothing's going to happen that's going to be impure in that room. The whole room and everything in it constructed from stone. And the Kohen used to use stone utensils all the 7 days of separation. Nobody was allowed to touch him even. No one could touch him. To increase his level of purity. And now that Rambam goes to the actual separation. Halacha base. 7 days before the burning of the cow, they would separate the Kohen who was going to burn it from his house. The same way, when it came to Yom Kippur, the high priest was set aside for 7 days where he got lessons and training. This Kohen also. V'davar zeh Kabbalah mi Moshe Rabbeinu. Even though it's not clear in the Torah, but this is tradition from Moshe Rabbeinu learned from the 7 days of inauguration of the Mishkan. V'chein mafrishen eisei me'ishtai. And we separate him also from his wife. Shema timatzei nida, because maybe it'll turn out that she's a nida, she's impure, v'yeh tamei shivas yamim, which will cause him, by dint of relations with her, to be tamei for 7 days, and that'll cancel the service of the Parah Adumah. Halacha Gimel, halishka shehaya yeshiv ba kol shiva, the room in which he sat all 7 days, tzfainis mizrachis haisa, was in the northeastern side of the temple courtyard. Kedei lahazkirai, why northeast? Kedei lahazkirai, to remind him, shehi kachatas hanishchetes batzafin, that the Parah Adumah is like a sin offering which is slaughtered in the north area of the Azara. Afal pi shehi nishchetes bachutz, even though it's not going to actually be slaughtered in the temple courtyard, it's slaughtered outside. But the north reminded him of the holiness of the sacrifice. The Rambam doesn't explain why it was in the east, but that's why it was in the north. Halacha dalid kol yom v'yom shivas yemei hafrasha, all the days of the 7 days of separation, mazin olav meichatas, they would sprinkle on him Parah Adumah water from a previous Parah Adumah. This was the sprinkling. We're going to learn about this later, how they used to exactly do it. But the Kohen, just out of suspicion that maybe he's impure from some corpse, they would sprinkle upon him every day the Parah Adumah waters. Shema nitma leneis v'hula yada. Maybe he became impure to a dead body without knowing, and we want to avoid that. So we'll sprinkle on him the waters. Chutz miyem revi lehafrasha she'ein sarech hazah. Except for the 4th day. The 4th day definitely does not require sprinkling. The reason? Lefi, because she'i efsher shelo yiyeh lo shlishi letumasai v'lo shvi. Day 4 of separation cannot be the 3rd or 7th day from the impurity. When you become impure to a dead body, you sprinkle twice with the Parah Adumah waters. On day 3 after contact and day 7 after contact. So let's look over here. Look at this calendar. Let's imagine they put him aside on Wednesday. Okay, this is day 1 of separation. So it's going to be 7 days of separation. Let's consider all the cases. Maybe he touched a dead body on the Sunday before. So day 3 would be day 1 of his separation, and day 7 would be day 5 of his separation. Right? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's one possibility. Maybe a dead body was touched over here. Then day 3 is over here on the 2nd day, and day 7 is on the 6th day. Maybe he touched a body the day before separation. Then day 3 is over here, and day 7 is over here. But there cannot be a scenario where this is going to be day 3, because that means he would touch the body over here, but by here it was already separated. He was already away. So what are you going to say? Maybe it's day 7? Day 7 means he touched that body on the Shabbos before, but you can't get sprinkled on day 7 if you weren't sprinkled on day 3. Day 3 would have to be over here. Since he wasn't sprinkled on day 3, he can't be sprinkled on day 7. So there's no scenario where on day 4 of separation, you're going to be sprinkled with the ashes of Parah Adumah. She'ein hazah b'shvi oile, mishum hazah shvi, the sprinkling of the 7th day will not count as the sprinkling of the 7th day ad sheyazeh b'shlishim milfanah, till you sprinkle on 3 before it. That's the last case I described. Even if you became impure on Shabbos, day 3 would be on Tuesday. If you didn't sprinkle on Tuesday, sprinkling on day 7 is not going to help. Umin hadin haya, now biblically speaking, by law, she'ein tzarich hazah ela b'shlishi ushvi la'afrasha bilvat, that really you should only sprinkle him like this scenario, on day 3, on day 7 of separation. The fact that they sprinkle every day is an extra stringency, goes onto that list of stringencies for the Parah Adumah. Says that Rambam halacha, hey, interesting thing. Because day 4 was never a day of sprinkling, but the court would always make sure to set aside the Kohen on a Wednesday. So that day 4 of the separation will be on Shabbos. And anyways, sprinkling wouldn't override Shabbos. And day 4 doesn't require sprinkling. If we would put him aside any other day of the week, we'd be losing a day. Because on Shabbos you can't sprinkle. So best is separate him on the Wednesday. And the Shabbos, which is anyways a day of no sprinkling, happens to be the day of no sprinkling. Halacha vav, another stringency that they used to do. Every single day of separation when they would sprinkle on him, which is basically all the days besides the 4th day, Mazin me efer para min hapares shenisrefu kvar. They would sprinkle him with the ashes of a different cow of the cows that were already burnt. We're going to see tomorrow there was 9 cows Parah Adumah made in history, and there was part of each one, the ashes of each one was put aside. So while typically you only needed to have the ashes of one of them, but for this kohen, just in case each Parah Adumah, wasn't done properly, so every day they would use a different cow's ashes. Some commentaries even say it means that every day they would use all the Parah Adumah's ashes. So he would be sprinkled on multiple times a day, once from each Parah Adumah. And obviously that's only a stringency, but that's what this chapter is all about, all the stringencies. If for whatever reason there was only the ashes of one cow, then for all 6 days, we sprinkled on him the ashes of that cow. When we sprinkle on the kohen during the days of separation, because of astringency, the person who sprinkles on him has to be a person who never ever came into contact with a corpse. Because the person sprinkling has to be pure. And if you're going to say, well, get a regular guy who became impure and got the ashes of Parah Adumah sprinkled on him, well, you can't really know. Maybe the guy who sprinkled on him wasn't fully pure from tumah of a dead body. So you have to find somebody who never ever became impure ever. And we'll soon see how that's possible. Same thing, the utensils, which you fill up the water with them. As we'll see later in these laws, a whole procedure, how to fill up the water. And the ones that were made sanctified, where they used to mix the ashes with the water to sprinkle on the kohen who was burning it. Was all used with stone utensils, because the stone does not receive impurity, so it's a way to avoid impurity at all costs. All these things are just additional stringencies of the kohen that the court instituted. Now, the Rambam asks the question, how do you have a person who never became impure? Never ever became impure from a dead body. So this is unbelievable. There were special courtyards that were built in Yerushalayim, built on bedrock. They found areas of bedrock, and nobody was ever plumbing the depths of this area. They used to hollow out the bottom, like you see over here. They made it, under this area was hollow, to avoid even what's called the grave of the depths. That perhaps maybe there's a corpse there from somewhere. Once it's hollow, so like we learned in the laws of impurity, the oyel blocks them. The covering blocks them. They would bring pregnant women, and they would give birth over there, and they'd raise their kids there. These kids were isolated from the day they were born, set for the goal of being raised to help with the Parah Adumah. When it came time to sprinkle the ashes on the kohen who was going to burn the Parah Adumah, so now you have to get these kids out of here to the water in a way that they're not going to pass over any graves. So how do you do that? Mevi'in shvarim. They used to bring these big oxen, because their bellies are bloated. Or some texts don't have the word mipnei, just special oxen that were very fat. Umanichin al gabeim dlases. On top of these oxen, they used to put doors, big boards that would spread past the walls of the cow. The yoshvin hatinoikis al gabe hadlases, and the kids would sit on top of the doors. So that there should be a tent, blocking or covering between them and the ground. Truth is, even the cow is enough, or the door would be enough. But we did both, again, for extra chumrah. Again, to avoid the graves of the depths. The they would carry these stone cups against stone. No impurity possible there. And they would go to the Shiloach spring. Once they came to the Shiloach spring, that was the one risky time. They had to come down from the cows and quickly fill up the water. Now, what's the problem? Why is there no problem over there? Says the Rambam, there's no worries at the edge of the stream. There's no worries of problematic graves. People didn't bury the dead in rivers. The oilin, right away they'd come back up. The yoshvin al gabe hadlases and sit on the doors. And they would walk all the way to the Temple Mount. Once they reached Temple Mount, they could confidently go down and walk on their feet. Because the entirety of the Temple Mount, as we learned at the beginning of the Rambam's book about the temple structure, the whole underground of the Har HaBayis and the temple courtyard, was built in hollows. They built a series of arches lining the mountain, and on top of that they constructed the Har HaBayis for exactly this reason, because the Kohanim cannot be impure. So they would always avoid in the construction the graves, so therefore the kids could walk on this area with no problem. They would walk till the entrance of the Azara. In the opening of the Azara, right over here, there was a little bucket or a little container of ash, which itself was prepared in a special way that we're going to see later in these laws. These kids take the ash, and they would pour it into the water that was in their cups, and they would sprinkle it on the kohen who was going to burn the red cow. And this is the way that you made sure that a person who never became impure from a dead body would be the one to sprinkle. Even so, even though they were so protected from all impurities, if the court would have these kids immersed in a mikveh, the ones that were filling up the water, sanctifying the water by mixing the ash and actually sprinkling it on the kohen, even though they're pure from corpse impurity, because maybe they became impure with a different impurity. Again, just for astringency.
And where did they put them in the mikveh? In the Shalach spring?
No, in the temple mikveh.
Oh, at the end.
Yeah, or even before.
What about the kid that filled up the water?
Oh, before? Yeah, he had to go to his own mikveh.
Yeah, maybe they have to go to the Shalach.
Maybe the Shalach spring, yeah. Halacha ches, tinoik shetava l'malus or lahazais, if a child went to mikveh, having in mind to go and fill up water and sprinkle it, lo yemale bekelov tinoik acher, afal pisha tava. No other kid could take those utensils, the ones that belong to him, even if he also went to the mikveh. V'tinoik shetava lahazis al koyen zeh, einei mazeh al koyen acher. If a kid went to mikveh having in mind to sprinkle the ashes on this kohen, and then maybe let's say he dies and he can't do the job anymore, they bring a different kohen, doesn't work. He can't sprinkle on the other kohen. He has to go to the mikveh with the intent to sprinkle it on this kohen. This creates a big discussion here because the Rambam keeps on using the word kids. Kids, they were all kids. And many times in halacha, kids' intent is not valid. You have to be bar mitzvah. Yes. So there's some discussion as to how old these tinoiks were. Maybe they were just bar mitzvah. There's different opinions. But the simple meaning is that they were kids, and nevertheless over here, the intent works. Well, just in case, they brought a bunch of kids. I imagine that when they brought the pregnant woman to give birth over there, the woman wouldn't come alone. It's like, give me some friends. If we have 4 or 5 pregnant friends, then we'll all give birth. We'll raise our kids together because their husbands weren't allowed there. Think about this. This is a crazy thing. They were dedicated to the service of Hashem. No, because they had become possibly impure from dead bodies. So this was a special reserve. It's like the elite forces. It's like they were totally secluded, insulated, just for this holy purpose. But anyway, that's the point with these children. V'chein, so too, the Rambam concludes, Kelim shetiharum l'chatazu, u'bnei adam shetiharum l'chatazu, if utensils were purified for this cow, or people were purified for this cow, lo yisasik bahem the Parah acheres, they cannot deal with another cow. Maybe they had 2 red cows at the same time, or within a short frame of time. Ad sheyit belu lishma, until they go to the mikveh, having intent for this specific cow. V'chol hadvarim ha'ilu, everything. In the last few halachas and in the whole chapter, Milas Yosedis Bapara is only extra stringencies required for the Parah Adumah, again to offset the Tvul Yom concept. Don't think we're treating it in a cheap way. We're actually treating it in a very, very strict way, avoiding corpse impurity at all costs.